So here we go. Well, it's a good morning in the UK, and it's of course a good evening here in Australia, in the city of Brisbane. And Thursday night, there you go. If you're watching the show, you can see that our guest is from the UK as well. In the meantime, I'm going to hand that straight over to Priti, and she can introduce our guest.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I love the idea of saying good morning and good evening at the same time. It's wonderful. And I'm delighted also to introduce you to somebody I've known for quite a few years now, David, aka the People's Lawyer. He's in the Garden of England. And welcome, David.
Good morning and good evening, as you say, Priti. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Kent. I would say sunny Kent, but it's not sunny. It's a bit dim and it's dismal and quite grey. Probably going to rain as well. So, but yeah, here we are having our international conversation.
Yes, northern and southern hemisphere coexisting at the same time. It's just magical, really. So, David, would you like to introduce yourself to the Southern Hemisphere and let them know how come you're AKA the People's Lawyer? What's that all about?
Well, because I wasn't born the People's Lawyer. It's something that landed on my head 5 years ago. Wait a minute. It was November 2020, and the alleged rumor known as AKA COVID, the alleged rumor, which was, as we know, a media virus, not an actual virus, was in full swing, and there were gatherings around the country, and I had been whipping up anti-COVID fervor on the streets of Manchester, which is my hometown. I've since moved from Manchester to Kent about 4 years ago. But, I'd built up a reputation. I was arguably the first man or woman on the streets of England to actually show dissidence to the narrative. Because I had the equipment, I had a microphone and PA system, and was at a loose end. I've been self-employed for a long time, and they brought the world to a standstill. And I thought, well, this is my opportunity to get out on the streets and to live the dream of a public speaker with no audience. So I went out on the streets, April of 2020, and maybe May. I cried because I think in April people was too frightened, and I had literally one or two people listening in for the first few weeks. And then by May, I built up the audience to about 40, 50, 60. But all I was doing was saying, this is a hoax. And this is not, we're being misled. We're being corralled into something quite nefarious. And that got me a reputation. And the people in the northwest on the coast, Morecambe, which is in Lancashire, invited me to come and speak to them. And this by now it's the winter, it's November, and the police were looking on. And as I introduced myself, I thought, well, I'm not going to give them my name. What do I need? What should I give them? I need to give them something else. And it landed on my head, the phrase "the People's Lawyer," because 30 years before, maybe even 40 years before, well, certainly 35 years, I had been a trained and qualified lawyer. And since 2012, I've been training myself, retraining myself in law, so that and devising courses in law, so that by the time COVID came along, I was ready to teach people their rights. And so the phrase "the People's Lawyer" landed on my head. It seemed appropriate, and then it developed a website in the May of 2021, and the courses that I'd been running as David became the People's Lawyer courses. So that's the People's Lawyer bit. So flashing back to much earlier in life, yes, I'd had a conventional start, decided that the only way to beat them was to join them, because I'm naturally very independent minded, and I don't, and I go inside for my truth, and I've always gone inside for my truth. So that alone makes you the black sheep. I was the black sheep of my family, and it makes you alienated from your schoolmates who don't really understand who you are and what you're doing in school, and because you don't really fit in. So not really fitting in, I decided that rather than wander off into the world randomly, I'd stick at it and excel in what I was good at, which was academic things, logic, words. Languages was my first specialism: French, German, and Latin. I was the only boy at the school that I went to that was allowed to do 3 languages for advanced level, A level. So I stuck at that. And then the question is, what do you do at university? Well, I would have done languages, but I didn't like literature. I just wanted the raw cultural connection, and to be able to understand French and German people, and for them to understand me. I was not interested at all in, in Proust or Molière, not interested in what people born hundreds of years before me had to say. A little bit more interested now, but still not that interested. Because, the times change. I know there are some universal truths, but we have our own issues in the 21st century, and I'm more focused on the current wisdom. So I decided that the most practical degree to do was law, because that would be the most versatile. So I went off to do law, scrambled into Cambridge University, passing their entrance exam. So I did law at Cambridge. Then you have to sign up for lawyers training, which actually more academic work, and that was arguably the worst year of my life. Was postgraduate solicitors training, and it wasn't training; it was an academic course, and it was. So you go from doing things that are vaguely intelligent at Cambridge University, you go backwards, and they treat you like a 10-year-old at solicitors' finals exams, because all you're doing, you're not questioning anything, and you are literally opening wide and allowing this nonsense to pour in for regurgitation in the solicitors' finals exam. So it's the direct equivalent to the medical model. The medical model, no questioning allowed, and open wide while we pour in this utter garbage, which we will test you on before you can get a medical license. And so the system is clearly defective. And when you're young, you're more focused on getting ahead rather than inspecting what they're offering you. So I knew it wasn't right, but I just thought, well, I want to be a lawyer to give myself the best start in life. So I swallowed it. It was absolutely turgid, counting the minutes while you're studying. Anyway, got through that. And then the next level is to do training, practical training. So you go off to London to do 2 years of working in an office. There's some stories I could tell you about that, but I won't go into them. Managed to scramble my qualification, even though all my bosses could see that I was more of a hippie than a lawyer. I didn't even keep a diary. What lawyer doesn't even keep a desk diary? Because I'm a timeless being. I don't do time. And I get very stressed when I have to meet people, because most people are on a clock. But, I always say, see you at 10-ish. If I say 10-ish, run a mile, because it's not going to be 10. It could be half 10 or 11. But, so, it's the chronological system doesn't suit the way I am. And, so I got into trouble with not keeping a diary. And I managed to bat that away and still qualified. And then I gave up. So I qualified and gave up. Just gave up there and then. I just ran, took the certificate, and ran for the hills. I was playing soccer or football, depending on which country that you're in, for a local team. And one of the guys said, David, you're not doing anything. Do you want my job? And I said, what job have you got? And he said, well, I'm assisting someone who's delivering parcels, driver's mate. So I took that job, and I went from being a miserable sort of grey, ashen-faced solicitor, not happy with life, to being an absolutely happy bunny, breathing fresh air, insofar as you can breathe fresh air in central London in the 1980s. And I went, and I was just literally glad to be out of the office. The claustrophobia was no longer relevant, because I sat behind a desk. I'm 23 years old, and I'm projecting forward into how my life will go. And I'm thinking, well, 40 years from now, I'll still be at this desk or some equivalent desk with these people coming in, many of whom want you to solve their problems, and you haven't even solved your own problems yet. So it's just like, and I was thinking, this is a job for a 60-year-old, not a 20-year-old. And guess what? Now that I'm a 60-year-old, I'm back doing it, but now on my own terms. So it's like I was. The thing is,
you envisaged yourself.
Sorry? Yeah.
You envisaged yourself at 23 to be doing exactly what you're doing now.
Yeah. I held my own hand and led myself into my own future. So, but there's a huge difference. I'm a volunteer lawyer now. And I'm the people's lawyer. I'm not individual client solicitor. I am the people's lawyer. So, so the accent is on helping people manage the crisis, manage the governmental overreach, the existential crisis. So it's not A versus B. It's not a man against his wife. It's more the man or the woman against the system. So I am the people's assistant as the system is just malfunctioning. And while it's malfunctioning, it's taking down people who don't have the resilience and the knowledge and the wisdom to cope with it. So it's a whole different ball game, and it's a much more joyous experience. And the accent is on educating rather than representing. So the people's lawyer is much more of an educator, because knowledge is power, and applied knowledge is true power. So if you can learn to apply it, then you're in a good position. So let me just join the dots a bit more. Excuse me. So, I'll just give you an anecdote. So one day I'm driving around. By this time, a year or two later, I've been trusted to drive my own van with no assistant. And I went into a depot one morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, normally the regular drivers at that time of day have got, like death warmed up, but I'm still running on this joie de vivre of living the great life of freedom and being out on the road. And I go into a depot. Yeah, go into a depot, and with this big beaming smile. And one of the loaders, because you've got teams loading up the vans. The drivers we don't load our own vans. So we just go in, sit around while they load the vans for us. And one of the guys on the loading bay said to me, David, come here. And he took me into a corner, and he put his arm around me, and he said, whatever you're on, I want some. and he just, and I said, I'm not on anything. I don't even drink. I'm nothing. I'm just high as a kite because I love the freedom of being out and about. And he didn't believe me, of course. He just thought I was winding him up. But that was the 80s, really. So I continued on that theme. And then something strange happened. After about 3 years on the road, for some strange reason, work dried up. And my sister had a boyfriend at the time who was a practicing solicitor. And he was emigrating. And he said to my sister, tell your brother that he can take my job. And this was in the East End of London with two hippie partners. And since driving a courier worker dried up, I thought, oh, go on. won't kill me. I'll give it one last chance. So I went into an East End of London firm of solicitors, and for about 3 months I was okay. But then, you know, the brick wall hit, or I hit the brick wall, I should say. And I think, no, this is still an office, even though the office atmosphere is okay. The partners are fine, likable guys. They're not sort of robotic solicitors. I still, you know, the old hippie habits kicked in, and I was losing interest. And I was just seeing through the model, you know, whereby, and it's true of psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, nurses, whoever, you set yourself up as the guru, and all the energetic vampires descend on you like you wouldn't believe, because you've given them a license to plunder your energy and to exploit your time. And I wasn't even well paid, so there was no real compensation. You know, it was just a pitiful wage. So I gave that up. I lasted a year, quit that, went back into road transport for another year, and then the real dreams started to. It was the year of the harmonic convergence in 1987, 1988, and that's when my brain started to think further ahead than the present moment. And it dawned on me that I was a linguist by school education, and maybe it was time to start learning Spanish and go and visit Spain. It was the one country that I hadn't had direct experience of when I'd done a Eurorail trip in 1987. So I learned some Spanish, and by the end of 1989, I was taking myself off to Spain, ostensibly for a few months, just to pick up their language, because I just thought Spanish is a world language, and that would be quite an asset. If I'm turning my back on law, then maybe I could use my skills as a linguist and see how I get on with that. Anyway, in the end, I stayed 7 years. And because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I thought I don't want to go back with crappy Spanish, because that would defeat the object. And I was a bit cocky because I got to a high level of French and a reasonable level of German, and I thought Spanish would be a doddle, and I thought it would take me 6 months to get fluent. And in fact, it took me 6 years. So I stayed long enough to get fluent, but I had some experiences that started to shape the way my future would start to pan out. So, for example, after my savings ran out, and I didn't exactly have a whole heap of savings, but so I was able to spend a year in Spain, literally just learning their language, and that was a good start. And then in year 2, when funds ran out, I thought, now what do I do? Well, you can only do what they allow you to do in countries like Spain, which is teach English as a foreign language. Otherwise, you're a persona non grata, because they have quite a close community. Barcelona is more open and more cosmopolitan, but the rest of Spain is quite closed. So I was in Madrid, right in the heart of Madrid. So I started teaching English, as a foreign language. And the maverick in me didn't sign up for any teacher training. I just thought, no, I've got a high-level degree, postgraduate training in my own language. I trust myself. I'm quite creative. So I started to devise a way of teaching English that was slightly different, because I was focused on phonetics. And it turned out that even though it was pleasing for me, because I could see that language is a set of symbols and sounds, but the way it's taught, it's not taught that way. And that's why no one can speak anybody else's language. To be able to speak another language, you have to have one parent who speaks one language and another parent who speaks another language. That's how it works. If you want to be bilingual, you have to have a Spanish-speaking mother and an English-speaking father. There are exceptions, but the exceptions are, otherwise nobody can speak anybody else's language. And I started to think, well, why is this? And I was teaching at academies, we call them night schools, And they come in boasting of how highly qualified they were in English. And I'm listening to them. I don't understand a word they're saying in my language. And when I speak in English, they don't understand a word I'm saying. And yet they've got all these qualifications. So at one point I said to them, who taught you English? And they said, well, highly qualified people. I said, what do you mean? Who? And they said, well, Spanish people that have got the Filología Inglesa, which is basically an English teaching certificate, which means absolutely bugger all. It doesn't mean anything to in English. It just means that the world of academia has allowed them to progress through the ranks. Yeah. And if you look up the word academic in the Oxford English Dictionary, one of the definitions of the word academic is of no practical use or value. Now, I didn't know that at the time, and I'm just following my nose, and my nose is telling me that, listen, I can't speak their language yet. I am getting better because I'm living in Spain. So my Spanish is going like that, and their English is going like this. Because I can teach them some wonderful phraseologies in English, and they go out the door, and they're still in Madrid. So what good is that to them? It's no use. They have to get on a plane and fly to London and put it into practice, but they're not doing that. So I'm learning that the teaching of English in Spain is a waste of time. Now, I'm also learning that the teaching of Spanish in England is also a waste of time, because in my first week in Spain, I tried to order a cup of tea in a bar. That could get you locked up just there and then, ordering a cup of tea in a Spanish bar, because they regard tea as an emetic. It's something that you have when you're feeling nauseous, and you have a drink of tea to make you throw up, right? So it's the equivalent, it's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of going into a pub in England and asking for a glass of Alka-Seltzer, right? It's just anyway. So, and it features in my book, School No Place for Children. So I go in and say, un tea, por favor, because no one's taught me the phonetics. So I'm speaking Spanglish, and he goes, ¿qué? He doesn't understand me, the barman. So I assume that he's deaf. So I just shout it louder, un tea, por favor, right?
So English.
Yeah. So it dawns on me that the Spanish that I've brought from London to Madrid is totally non-functional. I'm also learning that the English that they're bringing into my classroom in Madrid is completely non-functional. So I'm making notes here. English can't be learnt in Spain. Spanish can't be learnt in England. I've also made notes that, so that's the academic sort of language system. I've also made notes that when I'm backtracking a little bit, during my time as an office lawyer, my first go as a trainee, I was so unhappy that it made me ill. It gave me a bowel issue. That was the stress. And I went to the doctor. I'm 23 years old, and I go with a stress bowel. They call it irritable bowel syndrome. But it was irritating office syndrome, and I knew that in my gut. But the moron of a doctor offered me a prescription, and I said, "What do you want me to do with that?" And he said, "Well, just take them." And I said, "But I'm just stressed." Anyway, so I never took a pill. So all I did was get out of office work. I changed my diet, moved towards vegetarianism, but not completely. Just cut out heavy meats and cut out dairy. Dairy is a particularly what's the word? Troublesome. I'll use that word for my system. I don't, I'm lactose intolerant. So I'd learned that the medical system has no remedy. The legal system is not right for free thinkers. So now I'm learning that the education system, the language education system, is completely corrupt and self-serving. So I'm building up a picture of dissidence. I don't know that. You know, my dissident days are still ahead of me, but so I'm just developing a portfolio of objection to the system. So I developed my own language learning system in Spain based on phonetics, and that went down like a lead balloon because it showed up all the other teachers, because they're just teaching from a book, and I'm teaching from the heart, which is where the sounds, you know, the sounds are made by the heart for the heart, and the textbooks are made by the head for the head, and you can't learn a language from the head. You can only learn a language from the heart. So, so after 7 years in Spain, I think I look around and I'm getting that office feeling again. I'm looking around thinking, I think I've reached a glass ceiling here. You know, I can only go so far. My Spanish is good, but I'm not Spanish. And so, you know, any opportunities will always be offered first to a native and then secondly to someone like me. So I'm still only going to be offered translation work, teaching work, maybe interpreting if I do some courses. And I thought, no, that's limited. I think it's time to go back. So I came back. We're now in 1997, back to Blighty, back to the UK. And and Tony Blair, oh, I still can't believe I fell for this. Tony Blair has just got in, making all kinds of promises. And I thought, well, he seems like a nice young man. So maybe life in Britain will be a bit more palatable than it was under Thatcher. How naive. That's when, you know, that's I know now, obviously, that Blair is as, you know, and he even looks, you know, the horned one is, if you're looking for the horned one on planet Earth, you don't have to look further than Tony Blair. But back then, he was smooth and charming, and we all fell for it. I was coming back anyway, but it was just another factor. So what can you do as a refusenic lawyer and educator? What can you do? Well, I had this trick up my sleeve. I'd been a lifelong bridge player, the card game bridge. So I decided to put all the skills together, the teaching skills that I'd acquired in Spain, the bridge skills that I'd acquired from the age of 13, which is when I took up the game of bridge, and I became a bridge teacher. So this is me, you know, A plus B equals whatever. So I was teaching bridge privately, individually, privately, just private sessions of bridge. And then the Manchester Bridge Club had a vacancy, and I took that vacancy and became the senior beginners tutor at Manchester Bridge Club. And and then all the nightmares came back to haunt me. So I'm teaching bridge. I'm teaching bridge the way I think it should be taught, which is hands-on. But I'm getting cohorts of students who have come from academia. So their attitude is, excuse me, what do I do now? And my attitude is, well, do whatever you feel is right. And if it works out, you've learned how to do it. And if it doesn't work out, you've learned how not to do it. And that attitude doesn't go down well because they are used to the dynamic of open wide and pour the crap inside. Yeah. And I don't do that. I'm developing my own approach to everything, which is you learn by doing. You don't learn by listening. Nobody ever learned anything by listening. And so I just say to them, by now I'm sounding completely patronizing and facetious, because when they say, what do I do now? I say to them, why are you asking me? And they go into cognitive dissonance. Well, you're the teacher. And I go, yes, I may well be, but you're the student and I can't learn for you. I can only assist you in your own learning, which is what I'm doing, because I'm laying on these amazing lessons which people can use for an exciting trial and error adventure, but they don't want excitement. They don't want trial and error adventure. They just want to be spoon-fed so they can move to the next level. But by the time they get to the next level, they're actually not at the next level. And people wonder why bridge players who've been through the bridge learning program can't play bridge.
Right.
And people wonder why people who've studied French at school can't speak French. And people wonder why people who studied Spanish at school or anything at school can't do it. It's because the program is built not for the student, it's built for the teacher. So that the teacher can earn a living and pay a mortgage. So ultimately, it's the banking system. This is what I know that now. Back then, I'm still wondering, there's something terribly wrong, and I haven't put my finger on it yet. I know I've given you a very, very long-winded answer to a very simple question.
Well, it was very interesting. It's a beautiful meandering. It's fantastic.
Well, so and it will open people's minds to the idea that this, we are exiting a system that is completely dysfunctional. So all I'm doing is giving people an idea of how I discovered the dysfunctionality in the system, and while progressing along a journey to becoming the people's lawyer. So again, to fill in the last few gaps. So I had to quit. Like I did as a lawyer and like I did as a teacher of English in Spain. I had to quit as a teacher of grown-ups of bridge in England. But before I did that, I was offered funding to go to schools. And I thought, now that's interesting. Surely the children will be more keen to learn by just doing it, because children are natural learners. And sure enough, they were. And when I went to schools, the problems that I had were exclusively with the staff, because the staff are, on the whole, brain dead. But the children are brain alive. And so I was enjoying myself.
Like to see it.
And the staff were doing their very best to sabotage me, apart from one or two notable exceptions. But most staff are saboteurs of the education process. 50 years ago, there were some incredible teachers who were passionate about their subjects and who were genuinely a thrill to be around. They're dead and buried. They're gone. Long gone. And they've been replaced by automatons who are only paying the mortgage and have no passion for their subject and teach it with their face in their keyboard or on their keyboard, or turn their back to the students and teach from a smart screen or whatever. So the passion has gone out of the classroom, the interest, the excitement, and the heart, brain, gut connection. It's all brain, and the brain's a tiny pea compared to the heart. The heart is 500 times more powerful. So if you're not doing anything from the heart, you're not doing it at all. Anyway, so so the children that I was coming into contact with were doing it from the heart because they want to learn. They want adventure. But the teachers don't want anything of the sort. So I was gradually excluded from funding was drying up, and eventually I was defunded. And when I complained to Parliament that in fact we were doing it all wrong, that I'd been sent in as a maths and thinking skills coordinator using a card game as the bridge, no pun intended.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah.
Bridge that.
Yeah. So I said to the bridge authorities, I said, we're not doing this right. I mean, you can't tell any authority that they're doing it wrong. But I was young, I was naive, still naive, and I was saying, we're doing this wrong. We should be going in as a social activity, social and emotional skills, connection skills, intrapersonal skills, falling out and becoming friends again. And but they didn't have it, and I protested, and there was a report was made to Parliament. I actually went to Parliament physically, but they were just going through the motions. They were just patting me on the head like a good little dog. Yes, good little dog. Your ideas are interesting, but we're not going to do anything with them. They didn't say anything like that. They just said, leave it with us. And that was the end of that. So the resentment of having a good idea quashed led me to start to write the book, School No Place for Children. So now you can see where I was going with that story. That's how that book came about. And 10 years ago, that was quite an avant-garde, out there title, School No Place for Children. But 10 years later, 2026, it's actually quite soft core, because the schooling model, it's more than just dysfunctional, it's positively diabolical. And that's why I've started work on book 2, which is Schooling and Other Crimes Against Humanity. And I'm going to bring into play not just the dysfunctionality that was dealt with in part 1 and the alternatives to schooling, mainstream schooling, but I'm actually putting my people's lawyer hat on and awakening people to the actual factual criminality of schooling, and the audacious idea that parents who send their children to school, once they are put on notice of what is happening in school, become accomplices to a crime.
Oh, Lord.
So that is the nature. That is my way of waking parents up, because a lot of parents say, yes, I agree with you, David, but it's the yes, but brigade. But I've got to go to work, I've got to pay the mortgage, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. Well, that, I'm afraid, I expose as narcissism. When a narcissistic parent puts their own interest before their offspring, that's just barefaced narcissism. And the confident 60-year-old of 2026 is not afraid on any level of calling parents out for their own narcissism. Because I'm not just going to blame the education model. There has to be a holistic approach here, and I've seen it, and I've come across it too often, way too often, that everybody loves. Teachers love blaming parents, and parents love blaming teachers. Well, I blame them all. I share out the blame. I'm kind of, this is my humanitarianism saying, listen, folks, you're all wrong. Yeah. Okay. So let's not apportion blame. Let's all collectively take it upon ourselves to say, please forgive us. We are wrong. We would like to be right, and there is a better way. But before we can do that, and we are doing that, there are people doing conscious education courses and the Platonic model. It's that is already underway. But for the majority, they still need that emergency wake-up call, because the subtitle, the subtitle for the first book, School No Place for Children, was a wake-up call. But the subtitle for this second book will be an emergency alarm call. So, and yes, there are people out there who are conscious enough to have taken their offspring away from the system. But some of them, in fact, the majority of them, are more woke than awake, and they are still they are still running the trauma-based fear model. And so if the figure of authority comes knocking at their door, they panic. So we need to give them the knowledge that they will require to calm them down. So that's where I am at the moment, is to give people the emergency alarm call and the knowledge that they need to put the system back in its place. There you go. That's That's the longest sentence I think I've ever spoken.
So what would you say is the hardest part of what you're doing?
Getting past people's fears and traumas. So people need healing before they need knowledge. Because knowledge, unhealed knowledge doesn't heal you. Healing heals you. So they have to, and healing only comes when a man or a woman owns up to their own dysfunctionality, owns up and faces their own demons, using that old cliche. So, for example, when they say, I, the man, am afraid of authority. I, the man, no longer wish no longer to be afraid of authority. And I am going to take steps to pull that trauma. It's a somatic process because we are 99% water, 70% water in volume, but 99% in chemical composition. And water carries messages. And if those messages are messages of early childhood trauma, just the trauma of being dropped off at school can affect people for their entire life. Because how do they know at the age of 4, 5, or 6 that their mum or dad is actually going to come back for them? How do they know?
Yeah.
So most people, or many people, spend the first day in school just crying their eyes out. Now, so that means when you start school, you're already down, energetically down, or reduced, energetically compromised. Let's use that word, compromised. Schooling now, for the next 10 to 15 years, kicks you repeatedly while you're energetically compromised. And it's entirely, and then we could go back to the medical birthing, which is something that your other speaker spoke about the other day. I won't go down that road now. So when you add up all the major milestones in your early life, medicalized, traumatizing birth, feeling rejected and abandoned on the first day at school, feeling humiliated, isolated, punished, made to feel unworthy for the next 10 to 15 years in your formative years, and then exploited by the banking, legal, medical system later on in life, brainwashed by the MK Ultra media model and TV and whatever. So if you're half sane when you're 40, 50, or 60, you're doing very well. That's half sane. Sane in the meaning of healthy, like the Latin sano. You know, mens sana in corpore sano means, so sane as in healthy, well, balanced, centered, grounded. If you're halfway there later on in life, you're doing very well, because that means you can easily retrieve the other half. But most people, not even half sane, which explains all the vices, the alcohol, the bingo, the gambling, the drugs, the sex, the rock and roll, the distractions, the noise. Most people, I always say to people, imagine, when I'm talking about the difference between children and adults, imagine an empty room. If you put a child in an empty room with just a cardboard box, it's the start of a dramatic adventure. So they'll cut the cardboard box into figures. The figures will talk to each other, and they have, they can create something out of that. If you put an adult into an empty room with a cardboard box, you will need to call social services within about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I saw that at the bridge table in schools. Staff looked incredibly stressed because they're learning a game that they're not familiar with. And the stress was written on their forehead. But the children looked excited, because learning is exciting for children, but learning it makes adults very, very stressed, because it takes them back to the trauma of when, if they put a foot wrong in the classroom, they were humiliated and penalized and humiliated. So back to your question, what's the hardest
Yeah.
part? The hardest part is because at the moment I've got 1,000 students. I've only got about 100 of active at any one time. And the hardest part is helping them to learn, but to get past the trauma.
Wow.
Getting past the trauma, because I'm not, as the people's lawyer, I'm not a trauma release specialist. So what I'm doing is I'm moving towards trauma release, because I've got this workshop that I've developed in the last 6 months called Warrior to Warrior. So I've stopped doing chalk and talk presentations, because all the information is out there. There are people like me who are doing presentations. So now I've got a hands-on interactive workshop called Warrior to Warrior, where we go into the obstacles to learning, the obstacles to sovereignty. Why is it that, when a policeman rocks up and asks me a question, I have to answer it? Why is it? Why do I not say something like, excuse me, but who are you? You seem to have a fancy uniform on, and I don't know for sure. You look like someone that could be a police constable. Do you have your constable's card? Oh, you don't have your card, right? So you could be on your way to a fancy dress party. Well, how do I know? So you can only be, if you're not on the way to a fancy dress party, then you could be a police officer. Now, a police officer is a corporate agent, and a corporate agent requires a contract with a man or a woman. I don't wish to contract with you. I don't wish to give you any consent. So off you go. And that's how we should be dealing with these people. But sadly, not enough are. They are still going into panicked, traumatized child mode and complying, answering questions, filling in forms, giving their name, just like they did for 10 to 15 years in the classroom. So the sovereignty, to be a sovereign is actually incredibly straightforward. All you have to do to be a sovereign is answer a question with a question. Ta-da!
Okay.
What's your name? Who's asking? Where do you live? Who's asking? Am I obliged to answer that question? Actually, I've got some smart-ass answers for these questions. Where do you live? I live here.
Yeah.
That's the fact. I do live here. And if I move over there, then I'm living over there. So now I live here. And now I live here. And if they show you, I haven't got anything with my, if you hold up your driver's license and they say, is that you? No.
It's a driver's license.
Yeah, it's a piece of plastic with an image on. So it highlights the insanity of the system and the fact that they're just automatons asking automatic questions and expecting automatic responses, just like the teacher did. The teacher used to do the roll call, the registration. Edelman, here. Barnes, here. Ciclatera, here. Pollard, here. That wasn't even your name. It was the legalese name. It was the name that the government assigned to you and made sure that the school affixed to your identity. What we should have been saying is, excuse me, sir, but that's not my name. My mum calls me David. And how do I know she's even my mother? A woman. The correct answer is, somebody pointed this out. I think it was Cal Washington pointed this out on a podcast recently. The woman who claims to be my mother and who I assumed to be my mother, when she wanted me to eat, and she'd call me David, I think in his case it was Tricky or something like that. Anyway, so we are being assigned a label which has nothing to do with us. And that label is a property tag. It's a government property tag. And the first thing that people need to learn is that when they are using what they assume to be their name, John Smith, Jane Doe, it's a property tag. It's got nothing to do with them. So the first thing you need to do is to divorce. You can divorce from your legal name. There's many, many, many ways of doing it, both mentally and legally on paper. But the first step in the process is to realize that you and the name are not one. And I very recently picked up from some other practitioner who I don't even know, because it was something that I saw online that had been forwarded, that you can now write his suggestion, and it's total genius. You can write to the Registrar General and ask them 3 questions. Question 1, am I the legal name? So that's existential. And of course, they've got to write back and say, of course you're not. Am I the lawful owner of the legal name? And they have to be transparent. You can do it under the Freedom of Information Act. No, of course you're not. And am I the legal title owner of the legal name? Of course you're not. And once you get that evidence, then that is that's your proof that you and the legal name are not one, and that you have no claim to the legal name, which also means that no one else can claim against you using the legal name.
Wow.
And there are other strategies that if people do I'm going to get promotional now. If people sign up for my course, 2 courses, one is extensive, do it in your own time, and one is intensive. Yeah, if you go on courses, Priti, or is it Jeff? Yeah, that's it.
Jeff has it.
Jeff's got it. If you go on courses, you can see that there's an extensive study course where you learn all this in your own sweet time, and you just, for an extra fee, you can sign up for twice monthly live Q&A sessions. But otherwise, you're at home in your own time. Yeah, the silver package. So bronze packages, you just get the course and you do it in your own time. Silver package, for an extra £100, you sign up and you get onto the live Q&As as well. And there are even higher packages where I can mentor you through the materials. And the intensive course is 6 presentations which are recorded, and you get fewer materials because it is intensive. And we do it over 6 lessons. I've actually, in theory, got one starting on Tuesday. I say in theory because the take-up is quite low at the moment. It may start the Tuesday after. So it'll either be Tuesday the 3rd or Tuesday the 10th of February. We will start the intensive for 6 lessons, 7 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. Both courses have been attended by internationals. So I've had Australians, Americans, South Africans, Hungarians, Canadians, because what I teach is universal. There are some local references, statutory references, local to the UK, but they can easily be translated into US Constitution or US statutory codes or Australian acts, legislative acts. That's not difficult. Excuse me. And I just had an email testimonial from an American PhD who did my course 4 years ago when it was nowhere near as good as it is now. And she said that she'd like the latest upgraded materials, and she'd just like to say that it was the best investment she ever made. And she was able to use it the way it was intended to see off the schooling authorities and the tax authorities. So if you want freedom for yourself, your offspring, and freedom from taxation, then my course is one of the best places to come to, if not the best place. And it's a very broad course. It covers, there's quite a lot on protecting property, person, children, and the accent is on freedom from tyranny, and it says it's the slug line. It's freedom from government tyranny. So if you are exiting the matrix in your mind, if you've seen through the system, if you've seen through the lies, but you want an extra level of confidence to navigate your exit, then my course is as good as it gets. It certainly worked for me. I wrote to the Inland Revenue 10 years ago and just said, I've gone private, and I haven't heard back since.
Yeah. And this self-protection that Jeff is showing up, avoiding conflict with police, personal accountability notice, fee schedule notice, false imprisonment. These are all activities that most people do have to navigate.
Well, the fee schedules I regard more of a placebo, because the system you won't be able to enforce them using the system. And until we have our own lawful courts, they're just I wouldn't say empty threats, but they can be used in commerce to create something called a lien, L-I-E-N, and besmirch the credit rating. And for expert use of that, then I would recommend Rob of Observation Deck. Okay. That's his expertise. I just prefer to teach people to use the system against itself. So the biggest I would say the biggest weapon that we have are the privacy rules themselves. In the UK GDPR, Australia it's the Privacy Act, privacy codes in America, because they've gone headless. They're headless chickens. And when one agency gives your data to another agency, it's invariably a serious breach of the data protection. Mm-hmm. And we have case law in this country. It's Vidal Hall versus Google Inc. 2015. Data misuse alone is actionable. So all you need is to show data misuse, and you show data misuse by asking them to show lawful basis. And if they can't show lawful basis, then you've got prima facie evidence of data misuse, which you can action in a civil claim. And you can bolster your civil claim by going to Information Commissioner's Office and getting a favorable report that, yes, they had no lawful basis, and that you can use that. That's £2,500 in the bank for breach of data protection. And you can add on to that any civil claim as well for distress or harassment. So that's your basic defense mechanism against debt collectors or against banks who put the matter in the hands of a debt collector. So we learn to celebrate when a debt collector is coming for us, because they're coming with no lawful basis, no legal claim, because they don't have a contract with us and they don't have a deed of assignment. So that's no legal claim and no lawful basis to process our data. So, so that's the knowledge. It doesn't take too much to acquire it. So the next level is to get past the cognitive dissonance that no one can come to your door in a civil matter. And if they come to the door with the police, then the police can go to prison for 14 years.
Yeah.
So these are the things that people need to know. And it is written out on the latest hard card is the Personal Protection Card 2026. That's got the legislation that shows a police agent in abusive position can go down for 14 years when they threaten to arrest you for breach of the peace when you're in your own home, minding your own business, and they refuse to arrest an agent who's clearly in breach of the law because they shouldn't be at your door in the first place, and they are intimidating you, which is harassment. That's a crime. If there's two or more of them, that's course of conduct crime. You only have to come once with two people, and that's already a crime. And if the police officer is playing along with that and saying, no, they've got this and they've got that, and they haven't, they've got nothing, then the police officer is committing a crime. When I had a police officer at my door, I just read out Section 26, Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015, and they were gone within 3 seconds. Oh, this is clearly a civil matter. We don't need to be here. And so knowledge doesn't de-traumatize you, but it really helps. It really helps.
Yeah.
Because if you can push through your trauma and see how knowledge works, then that experience will start to de-traumatize you. So you've got to apply it before de-traumatizing can take place. Excuse me.
Okay. And can I ask you, unbeknownst to us, most people are on the electoral register. So we've all, one way or another, signed up on the electoral register. Can you elaborate anything about how the electoral register itself impacts on people, generally speaking?
Well, that is your consent to be to be governed. Signing up on the electoral register is that you give them evidence that you are consenting to be governed. And you're being governed in the legal name, the name that you are registered under.
That doesn't belong to you anyway, because you've already explained that.
Well,
that's not part of you.
That's another day's work. That's part of the awakening process. But within the matrix, signing up on the electoral roll is like signing up for a school. It gives the head teacher and all their staff permission to punish you. So you're giving Parliament permission to punish you, permission to tax you in the legal name.
That doesn't belong to you.
Which is why when you announce to the tax authorities, as a man or a woman, that you are in effect divorcing from the legal name and you're operating from now on as a man known as David or Priti or Jeffrey, then the tax authorities are put on notice that further involvement from them would be potentially criminal activity. So it flips the switch. If you don't go through a process and you carry on regardless, any inappropriate activity on your part is potentially criminal, because you've signed up. You've signed up to be a criminal. And your signing up was actually a criminal act. It was an unlawful act because you misidentified yourself. The birth certificate is not evidence of identity. So using a name that features on the birth certificate is a criminal act. And it's also unlawful. It's taking up an unlawful, unauthorized position of executorship of an estate that you didn't create and don't own. So, so the under Roman civil law, the presumption of guilt is based on the fact that we don't know who we are. We've agreed to be governed. We've agreed to be governed in a name that isn't ours. So the acts of criminality are multiple on our part. And so one of the things you can do is using something called the three estate protocol, which I won't go into now, it's a bit detailed, is essentially you are owning up to to the fact that you didn't know who you were in error. You've committed unlawful acts, which you now forgive yourself for, and you wish to be forgiven for. And you now realize that, in fact, you weren't the unlawful trustee. You were, in fact, the beneficiary of the estate and the beneficiary of the legal name. And in that capacity, you are now giving instructions for the agent, whether it's the tax authorities or the school or whatever. And so you shift the focus now onto your true status as principal beneficiary, sovereign beneficiary, giving out instructions, but going through a protocol so that you're wiping the slate clean. We've all taken the Lord's name in vain. The Bible has all the clues, people think that taking the Lord's name in vain is shouting out Jesus Christ or, oh, for God's sake. That's no. The Lord is the Pope. The Pope was Julius Caesar, the Caesar. But then when the Romans realized they could not control the world's population militarily, they could only control the world's population using faith. Faith in what? Faith in God. They got that from the Jews. So they did a pact. Faith in God became, and God's representative became the Pope, and the Pope became the Lord in capital letters. So L-O-R-D in the Bible with just capital L may well be Jesus or God, who knows. But Lord, capital L, all in capitals, L-O-R-D, all in capitals, that was initially Caesar, and then it became the Pope. And the Pope declared a trust over the entire planet with Unam Sanctam in 1302. Yeah. It was Pope Boniface. So that the Pope laid claim to all the souls on the planet. The souls were designated by the legal name, which the British Crown took care of. So any registration at birth then ends up in the Vatican. So they put the soul next to the legal name. So the legal name belongs to the Pope. And whenever you operate in your legal name, you are taking the Pope, i.e. the Lord's name, in vain, because you don't own it. You've got no claim on it. And when you are punished through taxation or fines or license fees or imprisonment, it's because you took the Lord's name in vain. But they are running a system in which they make you believe it's because you didn't do this or you did that and there was a rule against it. No. It's because you gave them the Lord's name and you took it in vain. If you don't give them a name, they can't do anything. They may hold you in a prison for 23 or 24 hours. There are people as we speak being held in prison without charge because they are not giving the authorities. And I know someone personally. I've met his friends, not him personally. I may have met him, but anyway, he's being held in prison and has been held for 2.5 years because he will not give them the name. So they can't prosecute him, but because they're such evil munchkin peoples that they are holding him without charge, which of course is against all the laws on the planet, you know, all the international conventions, but they are holding him because he is exposing the system. So he is the hero. You could argue that he's the most heroic man on the planet right now, languishing in a prison cell, because he knows that the system can only operate on the legal name. And if they let him out, he can shout that to the world, but they can't let him out because it would collapse the system. It would collapse the matrix in 2 minutes.
Wow. Let's take a deep breath on that. And as an opposite question, what's the most rewarding parts of what you do? What do you see that ignites you? I can see you're quite ignited anyway, your personality and everything. But what is it that keeps you going and gives you the greatest pleasures in the work that you're doing?
The primary thing is that is the blessing of COVID, and it was a blessing. Some people have reinvented it as a curse, but it was actually a blessing on all levels. And for me, the blessing was to release me, to give me the freedom of movement, because all the people that had fell for the trick were off the street. So I had the freedom of movement and the freedom to eventually become the people's lawyer and to basically be the shepherd that assists people on their journey out of the matrix. So it's my sole purpose. COVID was me awakening to my true soul purpose, which is to fully awaken myself, to accelerate that process, and to encourage other people to do the same. So that's my sole purpose. The other thing that gives me nourishment is the appreciation that I get from people who email me in and tell me that the work I do, that they say things like, thank God that you're doing what you're doing. Thank you for all that you do for humanity. So it's a very, it's like I've got the fire, but they're fueling it. They just add fuel onto that fire. And, whereas when I was a solicitor, you didn't get any of that. You get no appreciation whatsoever. All your bosses ever do is moan and groan. If you get in at 9:35 on the contract says 9:30, 5 minutes late. It's like being at school. Clients don't give you an appreciation because they think you're getting paid. Well, you are getting paid, but you're not getting well paid. So nobody ever bounces into a solicitor's office and says, ta-da, boy, have I got news for you. Right? So it doesn't happen. Whereas as the people's lawyer, I get people saying, wow, David, I sent your letter, the one you helped me draft to HMRC, and I've not heard back, and it's been 18 months. Or somebody recently was summoned for a jury service, and this is actually quite poignant. So she had a consultation with me, and she said, David, I've been summoned for jury service. And I'm very blasé now about my own sovereignty. And I said, well, so what? Well, you just don't do it. Yeah, but. Oh, okay. So you want to write a letter to rebut the presumption that you owe them an obligation. So we co-created a letter. She sent it off, rebutting their presumptions. And I didn't hear for a few weeks and assumed that everything was hunky-dory. So then she booked in for another consultation, and she sat there on the Zoom call, and I said, so have you heard from the jury service people? She said, yeah. So I said, so what's the outcome? She said, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? She said, well, I've got the letter here and I'm too frightened to open it.
That's me. I would be like that.
Right. So I said, right, first of all, take a deep breath and let's open it together. So she opened it right. And then she went off screen for a few minutes to read it privately. Then she came back and she goes, oh my God, what? You won't believe this. She said, go on then, try me. Right. She said, it says, we appreciate from your circumstances that you are not, that jury service is until further notice not appropriate for you, and we therefore thank you for your letter and bid you a good day, or whatever. It was a dear John letter. He said thank you but goodbye. And I said, so what was the problem? She said, well, I'm too frightened to. So people are even frightened of good news.
Yeah, and it's an envelope and they don't know what's inside of it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really scary to open up something. Yeah.
And so that shows, that we are playing catch up. There are not many grown-ups in the world. Most people are children. And the journey from child to grown-up is a journey of authenticity and honesty. So we have to own up to our fears, phobias, foibles, anxieties, and we have to turn towards them, not away from them, just turn towards them. And when you turn towards them, you think, hang on a minute, that's not such a big deal. And that was planted in the classroom, and I'm no longer in the classroom. So it can be done in minutes, seconds maybe, but minutes. And so that's what the journey of the warrior to warrior is all about, is realizing that in fact it's all been a bit of a charade. It's all been a bit of make-believe, that it's not our true journey. Our true journey is towards expansion and creativity and imagining, like it says, dreaming the new dream. It's coming out of the nightmare, but realizing that the nightmare is not real. It's just a figment of we've created it in our own minds. The teacher was never going to give you any real punishment because they would go to prison. And when the stop me if I said this before. No, I think I said it yesterday on another podcast. But there's somebody very recently told me that their boy or girl, can't remember, I think it was a girl, was told to was told to do something in the classroom. Have I? Oh, I think I said
No,
this
no.
off air.
Off air,
I
yeah.
said this off air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. I'll repeat it though. It's very good.
Yeah, I will repeat it. So this teacher gave this entitled authoritarian instruction command to a girl of 10 or 12 or 14. And this girl is a dissident. She doesn't want to be in school, but for various reasons she is. So the teacher said, right, Rachel, go and get that textbook from the back of the class. And Rachel, being very pragmatic and being probably a new human, one of Mary Rodwell's new humans, said, excuse me, sir, but I'm here as a volunteer. And you've just given me a command. And I don't think I'm going to comply with that because, you know, are you going to pay me? Why are you giving me a command? You're paid to be here. So with all due respect, I suggest you go and get the book because you're paid to fetch it and I'm not. Now, there are more children being born who are going to take that approach. And we have to celebrate this. And so I have a mixed attitude to having boys and girls still in the classroom. If they are the new humans, they can pattern interrupt and they can cut the authoritarianism in its tracks. So, so it's very nuanced. I would suggest, yes, if in doubt, pull your boy or girl out of school because there's no education on offer in school. It's just authoritarian, totalitarian indoctrination and traumatization and gender realignment. And that's at the shallow end. And there's probably worse going on at the deep end, at the, you know, child abuse end of the spectrum. But if you trust your offspring because you can feel their power, let them go in and redefine the classroom dynamic because there are boys and girls doing that, like the one I've just mentioned. So it's an executive decision. It's not binary. It's not, you know, do or die. It's have a think about the nature of the boy or girl and whether or not you trust them to go in there and basically destroy, absolutely sabotage the classroom environment. That's my nature. I am a saboteur because I do believe that you can't build on faulty foundations. We have to clean up. We have to clean up the basement. Go into the basement, clean it up, and then build on top of that. Somebody said there are alternative off-grid communities being built. They will be the way showers, but in the other communities that are still matrix oriented, we have to use the way showers as inspiration to do the cleanup work and make people want to be more like the way showers. So it's going to be, you know, that's if we are going to come into unity. Otherwise, there'll be a split, and in one world there'll be AI running the show, and in another world it will all be more heart-centered. That's always an option. I mean, you know, there's no reason why the world can't split so that people get what they want. Some people don't want authority. Some people don't wish to be free. They literally do not wish to be free. And amazing as it seems, we have to, or sad as it seems, we have to respect that. I know most people I know do not wish to be free. They just don't want it because freedom comes with responsibility. Responsibility requires resilience. Resilience requires knowledge and skills, and they don't feel that they have that knowledge or skill set.
Yeah, well, never good enough.
I have to say, I've been watching your Jeremy Clarkson's and Clarkson's Farmer. It's been the most riveting piece of real life experiences and reframing people's understanding of what it takes to be a farmer, to produce the food for the plate. It's just phenomenal expose.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, being brutally honest, which I like to be, I think I'm allowing myself that brutal honesty these days. most people, the education system is a factory production line for narcissism. Narcissism has, and I put this in one of my lectures. It's on one of my videos. Some of the defining features of narcissism are laziness, can't be bothered.com, don't feel worthy of anything different or better.com, and vampirism, energy codependency. So that's what narcissism. People have got certain phrases have been weaponized in the mainstream, and narcissism is one of them. Psychopath is another, and you know, surgeons and pilots are often psychopaths. You know, certain jobs require the nervelessness and the lack of remorse. You know, otherwise you wouldn't be able to cope. So, you know, the world is diverse and it's big enough to accommodate all types. And we have to accept that some people, especially the younger ones now, they are narcissism on legs. And so they are not easy to reach. And they have this entitlement and they have this arrogance. A friend of mine has a godson who's about 18, 19, 20, and we met physically. So she was visiting me and she was arranging to meet him. And on that same night or the night after, I was doing one of my talks. And I said, young man, why don't you come to my talk? And he looked at me with such dismissive, like, you know, like, listen, old man, what can you teach me? My knowledge is fresh. Yours is ancient history. That was the look on his face. So, you know, this is what we're dealing with. Well, they are building their own world, and in that world, they'll have their own challenges, but it won't be a world that we inhabit. We will have fresh air, freedom, creativity, and ancient wisdom coming back. They will have something else. And, you know, unless some cataclysm, you know, the grand solar, you know, the grand solar flare, or whatever, awakens people, some grand calamity, a tsunami, I don't know. Something may happen this year, actually. Somewhere it may even happen in February. Something major. But without that major calamity, the narcissist will just opt for AI and surveillance. Like, was it Shenzhen in China is 100% surveilled, AI-controlled city, 15 million people. Wow. And it operates exclusively on AI. AI is the brain. The city has a brain, and the brain is AI.
So do you see anything tremendously positive coming out of what you've been doing? I mean, some of it sounds a bit dire, but where's the upside of all of this?
I've just given you the upside.
That it's all freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Fresh air.
Fresh air is, people have, the upside is that we ultimately all have a choice. It's a free will choice planet. That's the upside. And so awakening, really being conscious, is really no more or less than about realizing that you have a choice and making the most sensible, rational, reasonable, mature, self-serving and community serving choice. So in the AI world, the narcissistic world, it's all about service to self. That's what schooling does, because you didn't celebrate the top grades that your colleague got. You didn't, not really, not in your deepest heart. You only celebrated your own grades, your own top grades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you were being trained, and you didn't really help your fellow students to do well. And when you did, it was called collaborating and cheating. But in the conscious earth, on conscious earth that we are returning to, collaboration will be celebrated. Community spirit will be celebrated. Serving self will be only celebrated if a better version of you can serve the community better.
Yep.
So that's
go on.
Yeah, so it's all celebration, but it's the fact. Another fact of life is that not everyone who appears to be human is actually human.
Wow.
Now we can argue till the cows come home about the precise figures, but the number of people who have the soul potential, first of all, who have a soul in the first place, but the soul potential to grow into true free sovereignty is limited. Some people just there's various descriptors. Some of them are called non-playing or non-playable characters. They are background people, and they will always opt for the matrix solution. And they can be people that you're related to. They can be family members, friends. They are just hooked into the matrix. That you can tell them when, from some of the things they say things like, life's shit, then you die.
Yeah.
That's someone with no soul. Or there are only two certainties, death and taxation.
No. All right.
Yeah, because that's not authentic truth. Taxation is a social construct, and death is just a passing phase. As we know, there's no such thing as death. You're physically focused, and then one day you're metaphysically focused. Well, that's not death. That's actually life. You could say that being in a physical body is a form of death. So there's people with a soul, people without a soul, and then you've got people who aren't even people, creatures, shapeshifters. So this is not coming from me exclusively. Putin reckoned that Elizabeth the Queen was a shapeshifter. He saw a shapeshift on the staircase in the Kremlin, or it may have been Buckingham Palace. I don't know. So basically you've got people with a soul, people without a soul, and shapeshifters. So that's three categories already right there. So all that's happening is we're having a grand sifting, a harvesting of the different types, so that everyone goes to where they are meant to go. So people like us are meant to go back onto the land and in connection with the mother. Some people say that Gaia is about to depart, which is why, and that she now trusts us with shepherding her territory. We've got the consciousness to do it by ourselves, whereas she needed to be there while we were still growing. So the earth, you could say, is a womb. And some of us are now exiting the womb in our consciousness, whereas others will stay in the womb, and that womb will be run by artificial intelligence. And then the shapeshifters will be dispatched to a dimension, probably the fourth dimension. And while we're hopping past the fourth onto the fifth. So you'll have third and fourth, people without a soul, AI in control. AI is in touch with the fourth dimension, which David Icke says is run by AI, the so-called demonic dimension, which is basically just AI. And then we'll be skipping all that through the heart into the so-called fifth, and then sixth, seventh, eighth. And that's the journey that we're all on. So there's, so it's not about bemoaning the fact that some people won't be joining us, because they were never meant to.
Wow. So Is there anything, let me have a look. Is there anything important that hasn't been said that you'd like to finish up with? Your parting message?
Well, we've covered quite a bit, really.
We have.
Yeah, we have. Well, what I would say is follow your heart. Other people's wisdom can be factored in, but if it doesn't resonate, leave it. The Matrix has gurus and idols. These are the false biblical idols, aren't they? The Matrix has false idols, celebrities, and they are about to be exposed. This is the year where the celebrity and the idols are exposed for who they really are. So when I said that there may be a coming together, there may be, in some ways, it will be that those who do have a soul, but whose soul has been compromised, trapped in the Matrix, will feel a soul release when they awaken to the fact that the Matrix was just one big lie, that all their heroes were in fact not real people. They were either shapeshifters or actors, that the white hat movement was a psyop, but it was a benevolent psyop to help people wake up using actors. Trump may well be an actor. Some people say that there are 9 versions of Trump. So the psyops abound. So you've got the dark psyop, putting people into fear, and the light psyop giving people hope. And then those who are trapped in fear, which we call the black pill, dismiss the people who are registering hope as, oh, that's just hopium. But the white hat operation was in fact designed to maintain people in a higher vibration full of hope, but inspire them to move forward in their own lives and be the change they wish to see. So in conclusion, I would say, people, if you have a dream, keep on dreaming that dream, but don't just dream it, do it. Be it. Be that man or woman that you wish to see. The one with skills, the one with dreams, the one with abundance. And that abundance has to be redefined. It's got nothing to do with a bank account. It's your sense of absolute potential, that zero limitation. So the Matrix put limitations on us, and it made us ask for permission. And if you're living a life permission-free, I wouldn't say I'm permission-free, but I'm very low on permission. If you see what I mean, that most of the permissions come from me. I give myself permission to be, certainly on the being level, I can be whoever I wish to be. Because I'm still in society. It's not a question of doing whatever I want, but I can do, within reason, I can give myself, my timetable is created by myself. My activities are entered into by myself. So permission is essentially given by self for self, and the demands, the external demands on us are filtered through that permission. We have to give the system permission for it to make any demands or take any energy or time from us. So it's an inversion. So to invert the schooling process, we're the ones giving permission. And there's actually case law on this. Entick versus Carrington from 1765 for crime, 1765, 250 years ago, more.
Wow.
That no agent can step on my ground, which can be my sacred space, not just my land. No agent can step on my land, ground, space, delete where applicable, without my license, which means without my permission. So my parting words are, remember that the government and the agents need your permission. Now, they've manufactured your permission, your consent, sending you through the system, but it's now time Now time to cut the cords that bind and realize that permission comes from you, not from them.
Okay.
End of speech.
You know, David, is captivating and fascinating, and it's a joy to listen to you and to have had this interview with you today. It's always a delight to engage in conversation or to listen to what you have to say. Thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you for sharing how you came to be the people's lawyer, and hopefully people will have a much better perspective of themselves by listening to you today. It's brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I just make a quick plug for my next event? Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so limited spaces, because it's relevant to today's podcast. For those who would for those who would like to de-traumatize and to strengthen their resolve to be the change they wish to see, then my next workshop, there'll be plenty more, is in Staffordshire, Northwest Midlands of England, on Saturday, the 7th of February, that's 7th, 2 o'clock for 3 hours. And I'll send you the link. There's an Eventbrite link, and it's on my website as well.
Okay, good.
So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Priti, for being a gracious hostess or host. Thank you, Jeffrey, for hosting, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you've made me laugh, which is brilliant.
All right. Thank you very much.